Wednesday, it's a hair-raising Halloween happening.
Can't she begin it?
First, that Emmy-winning Fat Cat hits the trick-or-treat trail.
I'm no scaredy cat.
Summertime brings the sun, but on Halloween your blood begins to run. Something spooky's going down.
Trick or Treat, Tuesday at 8 on Channel 11.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Arcade Hunters Podcast, episode 134, our official Halloween episode, as we pretty much do every year. And, oh god, now I'm facing a new direction. So to my left is my good friend Nick. Say hello, sir.
Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to our 2024 Halloween Spooktacular.
Yep, I figured this year we'd do something a little different. Got the pumpkin spice candles going, the pumpkin spice drinks going.
Yes, indeed.
And we've already talked about haunted arcades, favorite Halloween horror arcade games. I figure why not talk about some arcades and arcade games that pop up in horror-themed or related movies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Figured another reason be great to do is, especially some of the movies on the list that we have, it's a great time capsule of either what arcades were like, if it's one from the 80s, or what people thought arcades were like in the 80s. And we have one very good one from the 80s that it shows the rougher side of arcades, so to speak.
Yep.
And then we have some mall arcades. We're all over the place. And also we have some arcade games that kind of pop up in places that you normally wouldn't think. And it kind of shows just how big and popular arcade gaming was in the 80s.
I mean, think about the James Bond movie with the whole... Which one is that? I'm not sure if it was Moonraker, but they're all like... It's all like the rich people playing the arcade games and stuff like that. Just felt so futuristic. Like, this is where we're going.
Like the fancy Atari ads.
Yes.
From the 70s.
All that injected molded plastic, everything looks so futuristic and vivid.
Like,
but Gerard, I have to...
I gotta say one thing after you mentioned it. I'm just picturing Dean sitting in the seat listening to progressive rock and having his mind blown.
He's in a Floyd hole. We got to get him out of there. He's too young for that. He can't take it. But since we're on the All Hallows Eve, I'd like to talk. I don't know, Gerard, if you got to watch the video that I asked you to watch just before.
Not the whole thing. I got maybe halfway through it.
Okay, so I can't wait to hear your reaction and hear all the folks out there. So if you folks out there have listened to some of our other episodes, we mentioned our good friend Dan Lawson, who runs Secret Galaxy or Toy Galaxy. So he's been doing all Halloween and like ghost themed and like any horror stuff related this week. He did one for Filmation's Ghostbusters.
Watch out! Wild times are zooming your way with your Ghostbusters.
Is this ever great?
Join up with the good guys for creature catching action.
This could be fun!
They'll challenge bumbling baddies, spirited ghouls, and the master of disaster, Prime Evil. Join up for fun every weekday.
Let's go!
Starts Monday at 3:30 only on...
Now, I asked Gerard because the very first time I ever saw this show, the original Ghostbusters came out in, what was it, like 77 or 78, I think it was. It was a live action show with two of the actors from F Troop and a guy in a gorilla costume. So, naturally there was a whole thing about the legality and the rights issues with the Columbia Pictures movie Ghostbusters, that they were going to use the name, and they kind of had a whole bunch of bad blood with the whole thing. And they said, why don't we make the cartoon version of it? And they thought, no, why would we have to pay them to use their version? We have our own. So Filmation made an animated version. And the very first time I ever heard of this, because I don't know if did it ever air on Long Island?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding? I watched it religiously. My friend had the friggin' Casey the car toy.
And the
Which was
mansion.
like- Which was like the coolest toy. It was kind of like the Inspector Gadget toy from the 80s where the arms...
Yeah, it was like the Gadget Mobile.
No, the Inspector Gadget where his arms and legs would extend.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
So the Casey car, so I remember it's big and plastic. You can pop the front out and flip it over and put the cone one on for when it's like a plane. It had wings that would, I think, fold out. And the tires, because it's like an old car buggy... And when they go through transformation, it's like it gets all wacky. It's almost like Inspector Gadget, where the axles will rise up tall, so you can literally unfold the wheels and have it standing up tall. It was just bonkers crazy, and I remember being so jealous of my friend for having that toy because I was a Filmation junkie, and so I used to watch that cartoon religiously, along with the other Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah. For me growing up as a kid, that was the Ghostbusters show, was the real Ghostbusters. I don't even think I ever saw the other one. Now, what's funny is why I mentioned this, Gerard, is because the first time that I ever watched the show was Gerard brought over, you said you had 2 VHS tapes? Because there was multiple VHS tapes that they did of the show.
So the one VHS tape was... they called it the Ghostbusters movie, and it had like its own art, like very fancy, like airbrushed artwork on the cover of the VHS tape. So you're thinking movie, awesome. When you watch it, they took the first 5 episodes and cut them into basically one long movie because the first like 5 episodes were a continuous story. It starts off with the first episode where it's a passing of the torch from... was it Larry Storch, I think it is, and the other guy
Larry Storch.
It's the characters from the 70s one talking to their sons, and they're handing over the ghost busting business. And the gorilla joins them. I can't believe I forgot the gorilla's name.
That is Casey. I think it's Casey.
What's the car's name then? I'm mixing it all up.
It was like the Ghost Buggy or something like that, I think it was called. Because the one guy's name was Kong. So that was the joke, is that the one fat guy is named Kong, but not the gorilla.
Yeah.
But why bring this up to you, Gerard? So one of the tapes, it was like Spooks, Specters, and something else it was called. So they found out that one of the things, they went into the old archives of all like the newspaper clippings. So a mom bought one of those VHS tapes for her kids.
Yep, I remember
Christmas
this.
of '85, and they got to the end of the tape, and there was hardcore pornography on it.
My tape did not have that. I forgot about that story. I remember that.
So I was saying, like, do you have that tape still? Because I don't remember that, because I remember that one that was Ghostbusters, the movie, and it was all clipped together, and it showed it how it started and kind of gave it like a thing off. But I was just like, I don't remember seeing 10 minutes of a hardcore porno movie on there.
No, I thought we watched the other tape. I thought me, you, Craig, and Yusuf, we heard that rumor, and we watched the tape, and we didn't find it. I vaguely remember, because I knew that, and I vaguely remember. I think it was you that brought it up.
No, it was not. I doubt it, because I'm just watching this. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, we watched those tapes. I don't remember like it ending, because they said the thing was that Filmation hired out this company that was so cheap that, you know, I think they only had like an hour's worth of footage, but the tape was like an hour and a half. So it was like the last 10 minutes.
Yep.
Had the pornography on it. So they thought, okay, let's tape over these old porno tapes, but not thinking that, oh yeah, the last 10 minutes of it's like for families, for kids, this is entertainment. And then they said this happened multiple times. Like one was like in California and another one was in Texas. So That was my little Ghostbusters tirade. It falls in with the holiday season.
Yes, it does. I keep forgetting about Secret Galaxy. Because I remember
He's always got good stuff.
Yeah, I used to watch him when he first started with Toy Galaxy, and I've told this story on here before. I bought some Ninja Turtle toys when I was into collecting them off of him, and so I met him at a met him at a toy show. I almost said trade show. At a toy show in the basement of a church, very small local toy show. And that's where I got my crying android figure and stuff.
Yep. I still got mine.
I ended up selling them.
Aw. So, Gerard is going to lead about our favorite. He's got a couple cool TV shows and movies that we're going to talk about that have arcades. Now, I like to think of like pretty much. I know it's not a horror movie, Gerard, but I just wanted to add this in, which was I don't know if you got to see it during the pandemic, which was Wonder Woman 1984 is how you do not do a mall arcade.
I have not seen. I forgot about Wonder Woman 1984, and I really wanted to see it.
So in Wonder Woman 1984, of course, it has a big action set piece that takes place in the mall, and then it's just like nothing, and then like an action sequence. That was like the entire movie. It's like I love the original Wonder Woman. I thought Gal Gadot was very good as Wonder Woman, but wow, this was terrible. But it like starts off, with the 80s pop, and like it's kind of what like people think what the 80s looked like. Like the thigh high, like all the people wearing their stuff coming out of aerobics class and stuff like that. But it was funny because I was watching it with my brother when we were over, when I was, during the pandemic, I was staying with my brother before I got my own place. And one of the first games you see is somebody playing Operation Wolf. My brother looks at me and goes, that game didn't come out in 1984, and he's not a nerd. So I thought that was like, come on. So some of these movies are from the 70s and the 80s, so they are accurate. And another one is very important, that it's actually a plot point of the well, I should say the season.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll let Gerard start off. So Gerard, what are we going to talk about first?
So figure we'll ease into it, and we'll talk about the movie, talk about the games and the scene in the movie, and gonna start off with a classic bad 80s horror movie that stars the Green Goblin, Maximum Overdrive.
There you go.
My name is Stephen King. I've written several motion pictures, but I want to tell you about a movie called Maximum Overdrive. Come and spend some time in the dark. I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
Maximum Overdrive, rated R. Starts Friday, July 25th at theaters everywhere.
So, I remember seeing this box at the video store as a kid and seeing the Green Goblin face on the truck, reading Maximum Overdrive, Stephen King, and just thinking, holy crap, I cannot handle that. I was looking at what I was picturing was basically what like the game Carmageddon is. Yep. That's what I was picturing as a horror movie, and it is not like that. But it has so Maximum Overdrive. It's about technology. There's like a signal, and it causes all machines and mechanics and stuff machines and mechanical things and vehicles to go crazy and start killing people. Mm-hmm. There's the famous scene there's a gif of it all over the place of Stephen King at the ATM. I think the ATM says fuck you, and
yep, it says fuck you.
Yeah, he's trying to take out money and stuff like that. Wacky movie stars Emilio Estevez, and basically they all end up stuck in a truck stop.
What is it with Emilio Estevez in arcades in these movies and horror?
In the 80s, he was all over movies in the 80s that were horror, punk related, or arcade related. Mm-hmm. Just there's so many, and
that's like the meme with Dr. Doofenshmirtz from friggin' what is it? The Phineas and Ferb?
Yep.
That's odd. If I had that, I'd have 2 nickels, but that's odd because it happened twice.
And so they're stuck in the truck stop, and there's trucks going around, and like the boss truck is this toy truck that has this giant like fiberglass Green Goblin face on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the villain. Now this movie's famous for, I think Stephen King wrote and directed it.
Mm-hmm.
And it has I think it's the AC/DC song "Who Made Who" playing throughout the whole movie, like on loop. But overall, fun movie. I remember watching it and finally saying it's not scary. Thinking rated R movie. Eventually saw it. TV broadcast also very tame. So used to watch it, thought it was great, and then can brag to people at school that I just watched such and such rated R movie. Though really nothing R about it when you watch it on TV.
Yeah. But
the infamous truck stop has an arcade, and it's a small arcade with a couple pinball machines. It has a Star Castle cabinet, a Time Pilot 84, a Cocktail Tempest, which you don't see too often.
Yep.
And then, of course, Knight Rider pinball machine. So the trucker pinball machine. And Pokerino also has a vending machine, a
haunted snack machine, haunted cigarette machine.
Yep, and I think a haunted coffee machine too. And so this one guy's in there, things are going crazy. He's trying to pick up the quarters, and he ends up getting killed and electrocuted by, I think it's the Star Castle that does him in.
But you're neglecting to say who it is that gets killed. It is none other Giancarlo Esposito, Gus Fring from the famous Breaking Bad, and also Moff Gideon. Yep. So, like Gerard listed, had the was kind enough to I know of Maximum Overdrive. I have not gotten to sit and watch the whole movie, so Gerard was kind enough to throw in some clips and stuff like that for me. But yeah, it's Giancarlo Esposito walking around like grabbing cigarettes and grabbing quarters from the machines. Then he puts his hand on a Star Castle and he gets electrocuted to death. Go figure.
And so one of the main reasons I wanted to pick this movie, besides that scene, is also it brought back memories of rest stop arcades, which they don't exist anymore.
Yep.
And I remember going to so many. There used to be, even when I was in college in the early 2000s, there was a rest stop on, was it 87, the New York Thruway, and it was the 2-story rest stop with an escalator, and it had a little arcade in the back, had a bunch of games, had like the San Francisco, I think it was Rush 2024 and some pinball and stuff like that. And you used to always stop there on the way to school and play some games, then grab some food and get back in the car and finish the drive. And I remember we even have some videos on our YouTube of when they moved it out of the back space and had it on the wall on the second floor, and they had was it Popeye Saves the World? Is that the pinball machine name?
Yeah, there was a Popeye one there.
Yeah, and
one of the were you with us when we went to one of those it was either Too Many Games or Philly Classic, and we stopped at one of the rest stops and we said about how it had Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong 2 or Donkey Kong Jr., but it didn't have Donkey Kong 3. All of a sudden this random truck stop had a Donkey Kong 3. So I was like, oh crap, I got to play all 3 Donkey Kongs all in the same weekend. This is awesome.
Yep, that was. And there's the other rest stop that had one of those, it was one of the Asian beat 'em ups.
Yes. Now that's what I wanted to say as soon as we brought up arcades. So folks out there might know of a thing from Taiwan called the Poly Game Master, the PGM. So Gerard and I, our friend Yusuf and our friend Craig, were at this random rest stop in Pennsylvania, and we come across this machine, and it's called the Gladiator. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is new. I've never seen this before. This was like, we did not know. This was like back when the game came out. Let me look up the Let me see. The Gladiator IGS. Let's see what year this is. I can't find the year. There's a thing on Video Game Esoterica. He's a great guy. He has I think he has like the full PGM lineup of
right?
game.
Yeah.
Does it have a year on it? 2003. So this is around like 2003, 2004, and it just happened to have this Taiwanese beat 'em up game called The Gladiator. And I remember I took photos of it because the cabinet had English on it. I think it said like "Great, Excite" on it. And there's I also took a photo of our friend Yusuf playing it. And I remember saying on a forum a few years ago, like, man, I played this at a rest stop in Pennsylvania and it was a great time. And I thought it was like a fever dream, but we played it and couple people like, there's not a snowball's chance in hell you played that at a rest stop. And I'm like, what's this picture of my friend playing it then? I guess I was that good at Photoshop back in 2004.
Yeah, no, and that was the thing. Rest stops, truck stops, everything. They used to be able to find so much random arcade gaming, 80s, 90s, even like you were saying now, early 2000s. There's been, trying to think, there's been a couple other rest stops. There's a couple of rest stops on the way up to Maine when you were like first cross the border. I think it's the Kennebunk rest stop. I forgot what the exact name is. They used to have games. And I remember being a kid wanting to go to the rest stop because not only would they have games, the games would change pretty frequently.
Yeah, that was like a big thing for me, like being an arcade game kid. Is like, ooh, let's go to the rest stop. Let's see what games they have. And then you're like, no, you can't play games, and you'll be all pissed off because your parents are dragging you out.
Yeah, exactly.
They got Mortal Kombat, they got Street Fighter. Get the fuck out of here. I don't have to spend any more money. But I remember a story. I don't know if you told me or I forget where I heard this, but like one of the rest stops that someone had talked about said that it was a hotbed because for some reason they had a 4-player unit of Sega Derby Owners Club. And they said all of the truckers would go there and play it, and they would bet each other, and they would breed horses and stuff like that. And they said that was like a huge thing, that all these truckers would get together, and whenever they were going through town, they made sure they stopped at this rest stop so they could all play Derby Owners Club together.
That wasn't me, but I remember hearing that story. I forgot who told us.
It was a really cool story because, like, I am on the Derby Owners Club group on Facebook, so I might ask. Maybe I'll ask on that one day if anybody ever played it at a rest stop. Because I know they got really pissed off when I told them that when I worked at Dave & Buster's, when they got rid of the game, that we offered it for sale and nobody picked it up because they didn't have room for it. And everybody's like, man, if I would have known, I was like, man, if I would have known that this group existed, I said they would have held on to it and you probably would have been able to name your price and got the machine. Said I have a flyer and I have a couple cards.
So that
was Maximum Overdrive.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yep.
Awesome movie. If you want to see Gus get electrocuted and killed while he's trying to take smokes and quarters and vending food, check it out. Now next, so this one I included, so I wanted to include one with a mall arcade that's not Dawn of the Dead. I wanted to do something more obscure. And what's crazy is, I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. Just double checking. Oh no, never mind. Oh, I see what it is. So the mall, the scene is a blink and you'll miss it, but it's in the beginning, and it has the stereotypical what you would think a kid and a dad playing in the mall. Almost reminded me of like a scene out of Joysticks. And the movie is Chopping Mall.
Yes, the classic Chopping Mall.
They broke into the mall for the wildest all-night party of their lives.
It's dead meat.
But you're never alone in the Chopping Mall.
What's that? Robot blood.
where shopping costs you an arm and a leg.
Now, Chopping Mall, it's a movie about a mall in the 80s that gets this new high-tech robot security. There's a lightning strike, and these robots that they're nicknamed Killbots, they're supposed to patrol at night and do security, and they're only supposed to stun people. And if you have an ID, you can show them, and they'll let you buy. But lightning strikes the main system because lightning always fucks up everything with robots, and there's always a main hub system that powers or controls their brains or whatever. And so they go crazy and start killing a group of people that worked at the mall and stayed late so that they can have a party in the one store before leaving. And it's a cheesy 80s horror movie, but it's got some good death scenes. It's got some cool, funny what people think 80s kids talk and act like.
Yep.
It's got Dick Miller.
Yes, the late great Dick Miller.
He's easily the best actor in the movie. There's some actors you'll also recognize. There's an opening scene where they're watching a demo. People that work at the mall watching a demo of the robots, and there's a bald guy with a beard. And he turns in.
I forget his name, but they mentioned it in the guys from Red Letter Media did a best of the worst with Chopping Mall on it, and I forget it's the bald guy and the woman that kind of roll their eyes during like the whole presentation. I forget who they are, but they're like supposedly really famous.
Yeah, that bald guy's like a big character actor.
Yeah,
but
this is all they got him for. they were joking with it.
But what's cool is the movie was filmed at the Sherman Oaks Galleria Mall in Sherman Oaks, California. Mm-hmm. It's the same mall that they filmed Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So it's cool when they film in an actual mall and that's not kind of made up. The arcade scene that's in the beginning, it's a kid playing Taito Samurai. Or Tato. Is it Tato?
Tato. I say Tato. Tato Potato. Yeah,
Tato Samurai. And the dad comes over to drag him away because they have to go, blah, blah, blah. And the dad does a double take at the screen, and then he starts playing, and he's doing the full wacky motion movings. And now, oh no, dad's now into the game.
Yeah, you got to really work your shoulders into it if you're in the 80s and you're showing that you're really into playing an arcade game. Like that, like shaking your shoulders and shit like that.
Yep, and if you're a dad, and if you're an adult, you got to be like, telling kids stop playing this crap, and then you see the screen, you're like, oh, and then you're immediately hooked. There's a couple other games you can't tell. There's a skee ball in the background, but what really stood out is the arcade in this mall was on wasn't in a separate room. It looked like it was, the mall had multiple stories and had some of these kind of like almost areas for tables for food, or it was one of those malls where they're very big on the multiple escalators going up and the multiple kind of beveled out platforms with the railings and kind of the glass, so you can really look over and see the bottom and see all the greenery. It was in like one of those kind of sections, so it was interesting to see that wasn't in an enclosed space like most arcades and malls from the 80s.
Because for the very brief shot that you see of this, I mean, we only get like a generic like orange cabinet for the thing that the kids played on, because after all, Tato games were a kit games mostly here in the States and stuff like that. And I'm seeing like one of those like UFO kind of pods that's on there, if you see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember those, especially the one over at the Sunvet Mall. They used to have all those. That big, it would always be in the center, and it was all the little kiddie rides that you could go on. I mean, you can see a whole line of games, but once again, this is from, the early 80s with this, this one clip that Gerard sent me is 15 years ago, but I know they, Shout Factory has the Blu-ray for this? So
yes,
if you ever,
I believe so.
Want to see, so if you ever want to see this in, 4K glory and probably make out a little bit more of what the people are playing, you can take a good look at this one over here. But As most definitely, I have not played Samurai in quite a long time.
Same here. And you can actually stream Chopping Mall, I think, on Amazon and a lot of other streaming outlets if you want to see it.
And of course, you got like, for no reason, like, you know, it's the 80s. There's, of course, a beauty pageant going on with girls walking around in bikinis. So 80s.
Very 80s, and the way that people are dressed. And there's one guy, I can't believe I forgot his name, but he looks like he'd be a Chet, the way he chews and snaps his gum and everything. But definitely worth checking out.
Especially for the late, great Dick Miller.
Yes.
Who I made sure I thanked when I met the director, Joe Dante. I said, hey, thank you for introducing me to Dick Miller. I said he's a great actor. He goes, yeah, he was a great guy to work with. Really nice guy. I mean, we always think of, the Futtermans from Gremlins, another one with an arcade, but that is not on this list, so...
I almost put it on the list, but I figured I'd save it for another time because a lot of this stuff will probably come up. It's
basically like you've got the little Donkey Kong that the Mogwai are playing, and then of course the Star Wars that's in the bar, and that's about it for that. That's not like an entire arcade, which one of the ones that you have coming up in here is a full arcade. So yeah,
there's a couple. So next, this one I picked, one because I know you know plenty about it, and that is Ghostbusters.
Yes, indeed.
Ghosts, they're real, they're here, and someone's got to stop them. It's a job for professionals. It's a job for the Ghostbusters.
Hey, anybody see a ghost?
They're the best, the brave, the only. Ghostbusters, coming to save the world this summer.
We're ready to believe you.
Who you gonna call? Rated PG.
And one of the main reasons I threw it on the list is because back in the 80s, and it's kind of like what we were talking about in the beginning about like James Bond and the soiree that's full of arcade games and everything. Arcade games were so big and popular that you would find them in random places. In Ghostbusters, there's 3 games in the firehouse, and I think more. I didn't think a pinball, or is it just a?
I think it's a pinball because it's Stargazer.
Yeah, I think Star Castle.
Stargazer.
Oh, there's a Star Castle.
Yeah, Star Castle, Stargazer, and Missile Command.
Yep. And so, as a kid, I remember.
And then in the video game, they made it Qbert. And a generic pinball machine. And the what year? The Atari.
The game that was essentially Ghostbusters 3.
Yes.
Yep, and I forgot. And in Ghostbusters 2, they changed 1 or 2 of the games too. I forgot. But anyway,
now what I didn't understand is like when they're complaining about like not having any money because they're not getting any calls.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the hell do you need a pinball machine and like 3 full-size arcade games if you're out of money? And also, how the hell did they get them up there? They must have carried them up the stairs. I was like, did they have them when they were in the college? They just kind of appear. It's just very weird.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. These games are fairly new at the time, if not almost brand new when the movie was made, when the movie takes place. Big bucks for that time. Complain about having no money, the petty cash being the last for the Chinese food.
Yep.
But I just remember seeing it as a kid and thinking that's awesome that they have arcade games and a pinball machine in their little like living kitchen kind of area of the firehouse.
Yep.
And to me, back then, it was almost like a Silver Spoon's Ricky Schroeder moment when he had like the centipede in those games and the train he'd ride on. It was always crazy stuff in the 80s where you'd see arcade games in such odd places and such odd placements.
I say that all the time because it's something that like newer kids can't get their heads around. I was just like, when like you had the Atari and like the home computers and you saw how crap the graphics were, it was practice for the real thing. So it was like, you feel like, man, if I was rich, if I had $1 million, I'd have like the real stand-up arcade game. I'd have the real Miss Pac-Man. I didn't have to play the crappy Atari Pac-Man. You know, I had the real thing. That's how you really knew that you made it in life, that you were successful, that you had your own arcade game and stuff like that.
Yep, or like I said with Silver Spoons, I used to wish I was Ricky Schroeder's friend. I was so jealous of all those arcade games he had and the train he could sit and ride on around the place. Never at the time as a kid, I didn't get why it was called Silver Spoons.
Yep.
Now I know, but
now we know.
But yeah, that's funny. You don't see that too much. You'll see it randomly in like a modern movie. It'll usually be like an old pinball machine or something, but it doesn't have the same impact.
Yep. Now, one of the cool things about this is that the pinball machine for the actual Ghostbusters machine that Stern made, if you look at the inside the machine, they actually have it's just very basic plastic, but it's the firehouse, and it's got like the original, like the banner that looks like it's hand drawn. It says Ghostbusters on it.
Yep.
But if you look in the windows, you'll actually see it says Star Castle on it. They didn't really make it look like the woman that's on the back glass. It's kind of she looks like a wizard almost, like that. She's like in a she's like in a gown. She almost looks like a kind of like a genie almost, like she's casting a spell with all sparkles around her. But it says Star Castle.
Yep.
Or I'm sorry, no, Stargazer on it. I keep it because there's Star Castle, Stargazer.
Stargazer. Yeah.
Yep. And now, Gerard, you got another movie that you have listed from the 80s, and as we said, another one starring we'll skip the other one. We'll stick to the actual 80s one. I know you have it listed at number 5, but
Emilio Estevez.
And guess what? I have seen this as a kid. I don't know where I saw it, but I remember seeing this on TV as a kid. So tell them what movie we're talking about.
We're talking about Nightmares.
Somewhere between the real and the unreal.
According to the legend, das Teufel-Nagetier cannot be destroyed.
Between the world of daylight and the dark of night.
I am the Bishop of Battle, master of all I survey.
Between the peaceful sleep of dreams and the endless sleep of death lies the realm of nightmares. Nightmares. They don't only happen at night.
Each summer, one film opens that you've never heard of and that you will never forget. Nightmares is this year's sleeper.
You told me, I didn't know about this movie, that this existed. You're the one that told me about it. And I went and found and couldn't find it streaming. And then I saw that it was for sale online from Shout Factory, so I ordered the Blu-ray, and holy shit. So Nightmares, it's an anthology. All 4 stories are based around different urban legends. Loosely based around different urban legends, and there's one with a priest being chased by a truck. There's one where what's his face, the dad from Mr. Boogedy, is fighting a giant demon rat that's in the walls. There's like mice and rats are terrorizing the family. Then there's the one we're going to be talking about, the Bishop of Battle.
Yes.
And it was loosely based on Polybius.
Yes. And also like about how like kids that, you know, died playing Berserk, like he was so happy he had a heart attack playing Berserk and stuff like that.
Or
now
cabinets falling on them.
I thought this was the whole movie was just this Bishop of Battle, and then I was like, no, there's a whole thing to it. So this is the one I do remember. Was seeing Emilio Estevez with his blonde hair.
And so what's crazy is, so I did a little research because when I saw this movie, one, I loved it. So first of all, it's Emilio Estevez. He plays a hustler trying to hustle money from other arcade gamers. He listens to punk music the whole time. The band Fear has a couple songs throughout this segment. And so it's like, what not to love? Mm-hmm. And it's funny because this shows kind of it has two arcades and it shows kind of the seedy side of arcade gaming. Mm-hmm. So he goes to, they don't show the name of the arcade, but it's actually, I believe it's pronounced Sasani Arcade. It was on South Broadway in LA. And that's where he goes with some money to hustle from some 80s gang kids that are playing games there. And it's all about getting the high score. And so he ends up, playing a couple games and, he's not doing very good. He wants to bet money against the one guy, and the one guy, clearly it's a 80s Hispanic gang stereotype, the way they're dressed. Mm-hmm. And so he suckers them in. He loses a couple. Then he plays for some big bucks. They're playing, is it Pleiades?
Pleiades, yeah.
Pleiades? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pleiades.
Yeah, in the background, like in the clip, it says Game-O-Rama on it. Yep. So that's probably just what it's.
And so he's hustling the guy, and one of the other kids that are in the arcade recognize him. He tells a couple guys in the gang, like, you know who that is? That's so-and-so. Blah, 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 blah. I forgot his name, but basically he was like a big hit in the arcades and like some arcade gaming pro. And so he wins. He takes the money. They confront him. He runs out. They chase him. There's some cops out there. He gets away. All good. But the best part is it's definitely filmed in a real functioning arcade, because the wall of games, when you see him walk in, the variety of games, you see multiple Pac-Man cabinets. Yeah. You see multiple
asteroid machines.
Basically, a lot of the big games, they have multiples, because if there was a game that was a moneymaker, an arcade wouldn't just have one. Yep. They'd have 5, 6. It's not like retro arcades now where there'll be one Pac-Man, one Miss Pac-Man. It'd be multiple Pac-Mans.
It was like Noah's Arcade. We have 2 for you, because one won't do.
Exactly.
2 of Xantar.
Yep.
The best thing is they'll never eat the chieftain, so they can't get to the next level. So the kids keep coughing up quarters.
And some of the other games that pop in, there's a Slither, Vanguard, Galaga. I saw Wizard of War, Tron.
I'm pretty sure Satan's Hollow is in there, I think.
Satan's Hollow. I think a Kickman too.
Yes.
That's that awful. That's that awful game that was so bad they had to put a Pac-Man character in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
With Pac-Man. I was like, oh, wait, now I'll play it. But the one thing about this movie is I remember it fondly because it came on TV, and I'm like, I know Emilio Estevez, and I'm like, wow, he's really young here. So this was 1983. Mm-hmm. So we're talking young Emilio Estevez, and he's like, I'm at the part where he's grifting the gang members for cash and stuff like that. The kid, like you say, and is like, oh, you gotta know, I want you out for this guy. This guy's a legend. Hey, this guy's like one of the best players. And he gets addicted to this game, to this Bishop of Battle. And that's why he's grifting all these people, because he wants to get as much money as he can so he can just keep playing this fucking game. Just keep pounding it. He wants to get the high score on it.
Yep. And I was going to say it shows him going home, and fighting with his parents because he's addicted
Yes.
to those video games.
Oh
And
my
it's just-
God, the acting. Now that's the clip that I wanted to see. I was like, yeah, we can see all the arcade games getting destroyed, and you're kind of like sitting there biting your teeth, like, oh my God, that game will set you back like a couple $1,000s now, and they just blew it up and like set pyrotechnics on it and threw it over. Like there's space encounters and like because it has that big white bezel on it, and they just blow the fucking thing up. So it makes me think like those probably had to be like either from like an arcade that didn't last, or maybe they got them from the company. So it's like, hey, we're gonna need these games just to fill up rank and just have Emilio Estevez start blowing them up. But I just remember like laughing when he's screaming at his father, "You don't know what this means to me, Dad. This is more than a game. Like that. This means more to me." Like that. I was like, whoa, dude. So
I was gonna say we laugh at that, but we know some people, especially when we were younger, growing up, that were like that.
Oh, absolutely. So we all know. So from what I remember, Gerard, you can correct me, please. Is that the finale of this culminates to? I think doesn't he steal money from his father? I'm pretty sure that's like what starts it. Like the father catches him, and he's like, "You're going to play that damn game again," like that, and it starts off. So he sketches a ride on the bus because obviously he doesn't have his own car because he's too busy, playing games so he can have his own car. And he sneaks into the mall at night and, clips on the machine and he starts playing it and he gets the high score. And then tell the kids at home what happens, Gerard.
That's when shit gets real.
Yes,
That's
literally and figuratively in the movie.
Yep. That's when the main bad guy, I'm assuming it's Bishop, because it's Bishop of Battle, comes out of the screen and basically starts trying to attack him and kill him. That's the next level. It becomes real. And the gun, and what is ridiculous about this game is it looks like Tron. It looks like a Tron mixed with like a Wizard of War type kind of Major Havoc vector graphics game. The one controller is literally a light gun, but it's mounted on the cabinet. And the way the game works and the way you see him moving it, there's no way that's how that game would actually play. The whole reason that like ray gun is there, so when the creatures and the boss break out of the cabinet, it breaks, he ends up with the gun from the cabinet and it actually works in real life. So he's shooting at the different enemies that are coming at him and trying to attack him. Arcade is getting the shit blown out of it, and it was filmed in a real arcade. It was actually the filmed at Fox Hills Mall in Culver City, California. The mall's still there. It's now a Westfield Culver City. No arcade
Westfield
left.
pretty much owns all the malls, unfortunately.
And no arcade there. But basically, so he's fighting him. He eventually wins. And he ends up getting sucked into the game. And he becomes like the Bishop of Battle. And the cabinet, through playing the film backwards, reassembles itself. And so
it's ready to claim its next victim.
And the parents are trying to find their kid. They talk to his friend. Oh, that was the other thing I want to point out. The friend that goes with Emilio Estevez to hustle is like half his age. It's almost like the Gremlins, Billy's best friend being Corey Feldman.
Being Corey Feldman, and he's like 7 years old, and he's like almost like a senior in high school. They all look like.
So it's a similar odd situation like that, and they show up. They can't find him. The guy opens up the arcade in the mall, and there's a whole line of people waiting to get in, and all the games are destroyed except for Bishop of Battle. And you hear a slightly digitized, robotish voice coming from Bishop of Battle. And it's Emilio Estevez, and you see almost like a digitized version of him in the game. And his friend recognizes him, and the parents are like crying because he's in the game. And that's how it ends. So he became the game.
And that was like, I thought that was the whole movie, but apparently is there two or is it three or four?
Four stories.
Okay, it's 4 stories.
So supposedly, this was originally filmed to be either a TV series or a mini series, like an anthology series, almost like a Twilight Zone type.
Yeah,
Outer
Tale from the
Limits.
Dark Side. Yeah.
Yep. And supposedly it was too much for TV, so then they combined it and released it as a movie.
Yep.
But definitely worth checking out. It's Nightmares from 1983. The Mall Arcade, it's a great standard mall arcade, and so many games in the mall arcade. Like Berserk, I saw Starhawk, Carnival, Atari Football, whole row of pinball in the back.
Dungeon Explorer, and it just gets fucking wrecked.
Yes.
Is that even a real game, or is someone just, because Dungeon Explorer is the game on TurboGrafx, but it's like not 83.
No, there's it's Dungeon something. It was I think it was a Tato game. It was in the same style cabinet as like Alpine Skier and stuff.
Yep.
I forgot the name. Fun Spot has it, I believe. It's like black and white marquee with that Tato 80s kind of streamline with like the like almost like oval and the swoop swoosh. That bunch of their games like Frontline has that, I believe.
It just makes you cringe when you watch them and they're just blowing up all of these now classic games. They were just like, oh, you can just get them probably from the factory, and they're just blowing them up, and there's people like pushing them over. I mean, it does look a lot better now that it's cleaned up on Blu-ray, that's for sure.
Yes, but so many games destroyed, and pretty solid representation, I think, of what a mall arcade was like in the 80s. Except it had a little bit of that silliness. But no, probably sometimes the operator of the arcade would be a little friendly with the people. Sometimes it was a curmudgeon behind a plexiglass or metal bars.
It wasn't all like the old lady that took over, that ran the subway at the end.
Yep.
We actually had some nice people.
Yep, so definitely worth checking out, and you get a good snapshot of I'd say a decent snapshot of a city arcade, because there was a lot of some of the arcades that were in like New York City. We've heard lots of horror stories. There were gangs, there were drugs, there was a lot of stuff going down at the arcade. So you have the city arcade, then you have the mall arcade, where it's just seeing that made me so jealous. I would kill for a really good mall I'd kill for a good mall.
Yep.
And a good mall arcade, and having like an Orange Julius around the corner and all that stuff.
And like he said, I am the Bishop of Battle. I have 13 progressively harder levels. Try me if you dare. Let's begin. Very cool stuff. So that's all of our 80s movies that are done right on the list. So now we go to one that is definitely 80s inspired and very important. And Gerard, talk about the next one that we have to talk to the kids about.
So I had to include this one. Stranger Things Season 2, the opener, Palace Arcade.
Included in the pinball machine, which is why I love the premium one, because it has the side art is Will looking at the Palace Arcade. So on the one side of the machine, it's the regular Palace Arcade with all of the I'm sorry, I stand corrected. On one side it's for the kids on there, and it's normal, and then on the other side of the machine it's the twisted version, the upside down, where it's just Will, and it's like the Palace Arcade is like, like has all the tendrils and stuff like that growing on it. It's really freaking cool.
Like was it like within the first 15 minutes of the first episode? When he walks out of the Palace Arcade and he sees the sign all gnarled up and the upside down.
Exactly, yes.
We gotta do this? Let's engage.
Hey guys, do you see the...
So I wanted to include this arcade because, one, it shows how frustrating Dragon's Lair is.
Mm-hmm.
When Dustin is yelling and cursing at the game. Before they even get to the arcade, when they're running around their house, Dustin's running around trying to collect quarters from the couches, and the other kids are collecting quarters. Some work jobs for their money. Some are, what's his face steals? Is it Mike steals his sister's piggy bank? Steals the quarters from her piggy bank, which that's all crap. I remember even in college checking cushions, checking things for quarters for when I'd go back to school because they had a Medieval Madness pinball to play.
I love it that that's also a mode in the pinball machine is quarter hunt.
Yep.
So it's the kids are on their walkie-talkies like, I got $1, I got $1, I got this, I got that, and they're going like back and forth, and every time you make a shot, it shows them collecting more of the quarters and stuff like that.
And so the game list, there's a lot of games you can see. Some you can kind of make out. Dragon's Lair's right up front. Even shows the scene and how just basically how tough it is. Dustin has a meltdown playing it. Missile Command, Air Hockey, Galaga, Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Dig Dug with Mad Max's high score, which is
one that we have to include for the end because that's the most important game of this arcade.
Yep. Tempest, Asteroids, there's Skee Ball, there's various pinball, Centipede, I saw Pole Position 2. And you probably know this, you know the name of the arcade, what that's a nod to?
No, I didn't know that I didn't know what the name of the arcade was from, but as Gerard wrote down, it's called 20 Grand Palace, and it's supposedly from the movie War Games. I don't even remember the name of the arcade in War Games.
Yep, so supposedly that Palace Arcade was a nod to that, and I thought this was cool. They filmed the arcade in Old Laundromat. Apparently it was located at 6500 Church Street in Douglasville, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
They completely renovated and converted the laundromat to an arcade, and most of the games were actually playable.
Yep.
And so supposedly during breaks and in between scenes, the actors would go and play the games.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought that was an awesome nod. And to me, Palace Arcade kind of reminded me of Spaceplex.
Yes, a little bit. It kind of reminds me more of... There was an arcade at... I forget the name of the mall, but it really reminded me of it because it had like 2 levels, and it was more in the 80s. Spaceplex, more to me, was more of like the family entertainment center.
Yeah.
So that's like... Spaceplex is too big for... This feels more like your corner, like, family-run little arcade, not like a giant, like, entertainment complex.
Mm-hmm.
More like, or as we had our local arcade, which was in Sunvet Mall, which was the Subway.
Yeah.
This kind of feels more like a nicer version of the Subway.
There's an arcade in the Smith Haven Mall.
Mm-hmm.
It was one store.
Little Timeout.
Yep, Timeout. Yep, and I'm trying to think. Was it Roosevelt Field Mall that had the 2-story?
I forget. I don't think I ever went to the Roosevelt Field Mall. The one that was in the South Shore Mall, the one before it became FYE, I only went in there once, and that was in the late 90s, just because that mall was very sketchy and had a very bad thing for it. So we had this other mall that was the South Shore Mall, that if you guys ever saw, like, back when we first started doing Press Start Comic and first started doing Arcade Hunter stuff, that was where we used to go to play Dance Dance Revolution a lot.
Yep.
And there was, like, it was very ominous because it was a gigantic, long hallway that you went down, and there was a couple of shops on the left, and then on the right side there was an arcade. And the arcade was very sketchy, but it had like the kind of like the 2 levels. It had a decent selection of games. I remember playing Street Fighter Alpha 2 in there. So this was in the 90s. So I did not get to experience what it was like in the 80s, but I'm pretty much thinking it would kind of be like a more sketchier Palace arcade.
Yeah.
But like the most important game in that lineup, of course, is Dig Dug, because a lot of people complained about it in some of the really big arcade nerds, because they have it where it shows a top 10 list of high scores, which Dig Dug's does not have. It just you don't even put your initials in, but that kind of gives you the initials, so you end up finding who the brand new character is, and of course that's Max, the redhead girl in it, and it has a lot to do with that current season about the Upside Down being, held underground, and about like digging and stuff like that. And I think one of them actually says, this is like Dig Dug, like we're going down levels and stuff like that, they said.
Yeah.
In there. So it ends up like being like very important that Dig Dug is in there and it's part of the story on there.
Yep. And there's a couple times they go throughout the season where they go back to the arcade, but it's most prominently shown in that first episode.
Yep.
And that's one of the things
kind of stinks that in the third season, when they were in the mall, that they didn't have an arcade really in the mall. They kind of stuck most to the food court where the ice cream parlor was, since they were introducing the new characters over there.
Yep, Ships Ahoy.
Yep. Scoops Ahoy.
Scoops Ahoy, not Ships Ahoy. Scoops Ahoy.
Hey,
yep.
would you like to set sail on an ocean of flavor? I love that one.
I remember when that season came out, and I remember hunting down the Baskin Robbins Funko Pop.
Yep, my goddaughter's got the one of Steve in his Scoops Ahoy.
And
I love that one because that was where I first got my taste of the new Coke.
Yeah,
it'll be around forever.
Yeah,
because I say all the time, my parents were Pepsi drinkers, so I didn't even know about the new Coke.
Yeah,
but man, when I tried that, man, I was just like, dude, if I was Pepsi, I would have friggin' sued them.
Yeah, it pretty much, the closest you can get to new Coke now is Diet Coke.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty much the same recipe, just with diet flavor.
Yep.
Yeah, I missed that, all the tie-ins that they did with season 3.
Yep.
Season 2 had some stuff, but season 3 they went all in.
Yep. They know where they get their stuff from. That's for sure.
But I'd say the Palace Arcade, it's tough to, like you're saying, say if it's a good representation of an 80s arcade. It has the games, it has the vibe. I don't know if that many younger kids would be going there at night and running amok in an arcade. From, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, arcades had a bad stigma about them.
Exactly, yes.
That was where you went to buy drugs. That was where the gangs hung out. Basically, what they showed happening in Nightmares at the arcade, where Emilio Estevez is hustling money. That was generally the view of most adults of arcades.
Yeah, basically there was I forget the name of the one mall that we used to go to, but it was only in morning hours that we would go there. We would never go there at night, and you were only allowed to go in there with your parents. It wasn't like mom and dad would say, here's $5, get the hell out of here. The only time I really had that was when we were in Disney, and we knew because we were on Disney property and there was cameras everywhere that they were relatively safe, so you could leave your kids there while you went to do something else. Like that one year we stayed at Yacht and Beach Club. We stayed at the pool, and they had the Beaches and Cream ice cream shop, and you could just play in the arcade. But that's more 90s. But I think that the Palace is definitely a better arcade representation than the one that was seen briefly in Wonder Woman 84, because all of the games were accurate to the time period. They're talking about 84, 85, and it's not like where Wonder Woman 84 fucks up and you have in front and center and they show the kids playing a game from 1987 or 1988, which was what the hell was it? The friggin' Operation Wolf. Yeah. I mean, even Tron Legacy failed at that, because I think if you look very closely, when he's walking, when Sam Flynn is walking to the Tron machine that's in the back, I'm pretty sure there's a Mortal Kombat 1 machine in there, and it just makes absolutely no sense, because you see all the 80s games and it's playing friggin' it's playing Journey, and then I'm pretty sure, because most of the games are covered with tarps, but I was pretty certain that was Mortal Kombat.
I think you're right. That stuff always baffled me.
Yeah.
How can you? I mean, when it's what period the show's taking place or the movie's taking place, and it's so easy now to fact check. It's not like in the 80s.
And like I said, my brother noticed it, and he's not that big of a fan, and he was like, "That came out when Nintendo was out. That didn't come out when." But like, okay, if it's in the background, but when you have it front and center and the people are playing it, it's like, yeah, you kind of lose me as an audience member. So the one good thing, at least on the Palace, was they kept everything at the proper time period.
Yep.
I was like, Dragon's Lair was like the newest, and that was like remember, that was like the big thing because that was state of the art. You're playing the cartoon. Holy shit.
Except, I don't know about you, every time I went to play it with my friends, we thought it was broken.
Yep. No one knew what the hell they were doing.
I
have that story about when I played Space Ace for the first time. I just kept trying to hit the button.
Yep, moving the joystick, hitting the button. The guy's on the screen. It's a cartoon, but the guy's not moving or doing what I'm doing with the controller, so it must be broken. It was all, QuickTime events?
Yeah, it's QT the game. It wasn't until like Dragon's Lair 2 came out and someone said, no, this is what you're supposed to do. When you see it flash, you move the joystick. I was like, oh, that's how you're supposed to play it? It's like, okay.
I was going to throw in, so I definitely want to see Wonder Woman 84, just because I haven't, just to see what the hoopla is about.
It sucked.
I know, but it sounds like besides Stranger Things having a better arcade representation of that movie, I'm guessing the final showdown in Stranger Things Season 3 in the mall is better than the showdown in Wonder Woman 84 in the mall.
Oh, God, yes. But the mall scene is just the beginning of Wonder Woman. And then the rest of it, it's her mulling about Chris Pine's character, I think it is. And then there's like a scene at the end with the one girl that turns into Tigress, and it's really shitty. I was just like, I remember seeing that, and I was just like, thank God I didn't spend the $15 to see it in the theater. So I would have been real pissed.
And it's crazy because the trailer makes it look so good.
Oh, yeah. It was this. I remember that when it was at the beginning of the pandemic, when I was, when I first came over here to Tampa, when I was still living with my brother, I had just gotten HBO Max. And the first thing I saw was Wonder Woman 84, and I said, well, that was shit. And then after that, I had saw that the Studio Ghibli movie, Earwig and the Witch, came out, and that was even worse. I was like, why am I still subscribed to this piece of shit service? This is terrible.
Striking out left and right.
Absolutely. And now you got David Zaslav canceling shit that people actually wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that friggin' the second Joker blew up in their face. I doubt they'll ever give us Coyote versus Acme. That was something that I'd actually want to see. I was like, okay, give me that's a funny freaking idea. Have a friggin' courtroom drama, with the Coyote suing the Acme Corporation, but it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I mean, It's got John Cena in it, and it's like, okay, how is this not going to be something? And it was the other thing, I hate going off on a tirade about it's not the subject, and it was just like, they decided they wanted a musical version of the Joker, but they wouldn't give us Batgirl, and that actually looked good, and it had Brendan Fraser in it after he made his big comeback with the Whale movie.
Whale, yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, I'd rather see Batgirl with Brendan Fraser in it. So I think that's all we had on our Halloween show. So nice little representation of arcades and games from the 80s, and some, one from just recently with Stranger Things. So it runs the gamut, as they say, Yep,
and there's plenty more. Maybe we'll revisit this topic in the future. I think it would be cool to do arcades and blockbuster movies. Because when I first brought this topic up to you, you're like, well, I know about this, and this, but those aren't really horror movies.
Yeah, because like everybody thinks of like, you know, well, I'm pretty sure we mentioned Jaws before on, you know, with the and that's like prehistoric arcade games, you know, like them playing Killer Shark and stuff like that. And then, you know, kind of people like to lump in Terminator 2. Since it's, you know, it's so bloody and violent and stuff like that, but I wouldn't really consider, you know, that's more of an action movie and suspense than being like a full-on horror movie.
Like a summer blockbuster.
Yes, like the big summer tentpole blockbusters, because there is a bunch.
Yeah, there's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I always remember that arcade scene. Goonies.
The Goonies, yep.
Got lots of stuff.
Aw, shit. I just love that guy, when he grew up, he became class president of UCLA on one platform. I was Chunk in the Goonies. I'm like, I will vote for you, my good man. You have my vote. That's how we bind the country. That's how we join together as a nation.
So thank you for checking us out and listening to our Halloween episode. We hope you have a safe, fun, happy Halloween. Hard to believe it's a week away from when we're recording this. So by the time you hear this, probably just under a week away. Now, if you want to, some stuff I meant to talk about in the beginning. We had to switch new hosts. The podcast is back up on iTunes. Even updated the image for the podcast. If you want to do us a huge favor, give us a review. Any review, 5 stars would be great. That helps push us up to the top and helps us get spotted more. Our old episodes are, even though it shows up, they're not available except for the last one we recorded, 133. And that's because we were using hosting through archive.org and they were hacked. And their archive.org is working to bring it back. And so we decided, instead of waiting the month or however long it takes for them to get back going, and we've been talking about it, jumping to a new platform. So we have a new host, a new solid platform, and plenty of shows to come out. If archive.org doesn't, let's say for some reason it doesn't come back, then we might start re-uploading old episodes under the classic banner. So it doesn't get mistaken as a new episode. It might be like classic episode, blah, blah, blah. Just so people want to check us out. Also, I keep talking about giveaways. They are coming. I've got a bag full of arcade-related and pinball-related goodies. I just need a time to assemble them. So check our social medias. It'll probably be like, what the hell, I'll throw it out there. If you write us a review, we'll send you some swag.
Yes.
We'll send you some stuff. The best way to do it, if you write us a review, take a screenshot and post it, send it to us on our social media, Twitter, X, whatever it is, Instagram.
pscvideos@gmail.com.
Yep, or email pscvideos@gmail.com, and we'll send you some swag.
Excellent. Yeah, we hope to hear from you. We hope you liked this version of our new Arcade Hunters podcast. As always, like we said, follow us on all your favorite social media sites. Gerard, I just logged into the TikTok, so I am able to do the TikTok stuff on there, along with the the Instagram, so we can do all the stuff all over the place, all over everybody's favorite social media feeds. So we're all over the place.
Yep. And I got to start doing more TikTok stuff. I fell off of that for a little bit.
Yeah, the kids love it, but it's so weird. That's where all the action is, and you'd think for like the stuff we post, it wouldn't be for people of the TikTok generation, but no. Apparently, I was looking at the numbers. Like, I know it's a meme thing to say. I was like, holy shit, this thing's doing numbers. Look at this. He just walked around. He walked around the arcade. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, we'll check it out. Well, all right, folks. So once again, we'd like to thank you all for coming and checking out this brand new episode of the Arcade Hunters podcast. As Gerard said, have a very happy and safe Halloween season. And we'll talk to you folks all next time. Take care.
See ya.
Very good.
Today is yesterday. Will tomorrow look as bright as you turn and you walk away into the cold and rainy night? When you give all you have to give, all you've been, will you then? Will you remember all the laughter? Will you remember all the love? Will you remember being needed? Will the memories ever be enough? What's the use of you going when your heart is left behind? You don't feel the cold wind blowing as you sadly say goodbye. Will you remember all the laughter? Will you remember all the love? Will you remember being needed? Will the memories ever be enough? Now, time won't ever heal just how bad you feel when you go. Will you remember all the laughter? Will you remember all the love? Will you remember being needed? Will the memories ever be enough? Come home.